Hello, everyone. I'm just using this time to check my microphone and camera. So, those who are attending, could you please just give me a thumbs up if you can clearly see and hear my voice? Just a thumbs up in the chat should be good. Wonderful. All good. So, I'll probably get it started in a minute. Just waiting for those who are joining a bit late. So I'll get it started in 1 minute. Alrighty, let's get this started. So, hello everyone. Good evening, afternoon, night, depending on where you are at. Welcome to Master Your Courses webinar on AP Biology. So, congrats on joining us today. We are going to talk about some tips and tricks today on how to ace your AP Biology. So, with that, I just want to see how is everyone doing. Just maybe write in the chat that how you are doing this evening. Wonderful. I named H, so I just got one message, so I'm waiting for more. Wonderful. Naisha, thanks for confirming you're doing great. I see Nitish there. Welcome. Shashra, wonderful. Wonderful. So great. I'm gonna start with introducing myself, like who we are, why we are today. And then, as I said, we are going to share some tips and tricks with you today for acing your AP Bio. My name is Dr. Piri. I'm academic consultant here at Master Your Courses, and I'm a professor at university. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story of where Master Your Courses is. So it will. We have been in this like company for the past 5 years, and why we started this business was that when I entered this business about 10 years ago, one of the challenges that I was facing was that most of the businesses and companies out there, they were viewing this AP as a regular courses, which is not the case. So AP, for those of you who may not know, AP is extremely specified and it is supposed to be challenging. Those are basically university level courses that are offered in high school. And teaching AP and like mastering AP is a totally different game than other courses in a high school. But at that time, I could see that there's not much like highly qualified people to like teach AP courses. That's why like I had this mission of starting a company where I'm bringing together a group of highly qualified academic people that they know the concept very well and they can provide students with top tier training on specifically AP courses. And that's why we kind of like started this company. As I said, like I myself have been in academia for 13 years. I'm teaching at university. I'm a professor at university. So education is my job. Uh, I have my co-founder, Masood Habibi. He's a gold Olympiad medalist in physics. So him and I kind of started this company and started attracting talents that are qualified. So like we were extremely picky on who we are choosing for teaching AP. That's how we started getting these talents from top schools. So our team is filled with graduate students from top schools, with med students, with dental students, lawyers. And the reason we have put this together, like the highly qualified academicians, is precisely what I said. Teaching AP is challenging. It's not just regular courses. And if you're wondering how we have done in the past 5 years, so like when we start the company, like till now, we have helped more than 400 students. Uh, we have developed all the course material, all the trainings that they need to excel their AP courses. And we're kind of confident that those students who have joined us and they've attended the classes, they have done their assignments, they have got full mark on their AP courses, like 5 out of 5. So more than 90% of our students, in fact, they got a full mark in the past 5 years. And I'm going to share with you some of the experiences of those who have worked with us so that you have a sense of who we are, like how we are working. So I'm going to share my screen with you today. So okay, so this is my screen. As you can see, that's master your courses, but I guess I need some confirmation from you to make sure that you're able to see my screen. So maybe in the chat, could you please shout out if you're able to see my screen? Wonderful. So maybe I need more approvals. I see 3 people so far are able to see my screen. Wonderful. Okay, I see some people are sending private chat. So feel free to like either send me private or public chat. Either way is fine. I just want to make sure that you're able to see my screen. Wonderful. Okay, so like this is our company website where you're able to see lots of resources there, lots of information about AP in particular. So if you go to like masteryourcourses.com, here on the top tab here, we have our success stories. So if you go to success stories, we have just put some of the samples of students who have worked with us in the past. So if you scroll down, you'll see that we have tried to interview those students who have worked with us and how was their experience. So as you scroll down, there are many of them. As I said, these are just some samples that you get a sense. So I strongly recommend that you take the time, go through these and like kind of see like how do others think about us. I can just provide you with some information about the highlights of them. Shivam actually is one of our students that like I'm actually quite proud of him. Like he was a student from Bay Area, and for those of you from Bay Area or those of you that know where Bay Area is, it's highly competitive. Like high schools there are super competitive because all these top schools are located there, like Stanford, Berkeley, these top schools. And when Shivam joined us, like he was having some issues with his AP courses, but we helped him and he got a 5 on his AP, and 5 is the full mark on AP. So that's the best grade that you can get. And then, but the game didn't stop there. So we helped him further because our mission is to make sure that we send our students to top schools. And by top schools, I mean Stanford, Harvard, these levels of top engineering schools. And Shivam actually joined one of the top 10 engineering schools, Purdue. And now, like, he's quite happy. His parents are quite proud, and we are proud that our students are joining these top level schools. So here I have another example, Sawar and Sanj. This is actually quite interesting. They were a twin who joined our program, and guess what happened? Like both of them got full mark on their AP. Gupta, actually, this is going to surprise you. When the student joined us, she was only 14 years old. So imagine a 14-year-old join us, but they could still take the exam, and they also got a full mark on the AP. These are some of the examples from, these are some examples from past year. Here I have some examples from this year. Esther, for example, she got a full mark on AP Biology, and many, many more. As I said, these are just some samples I've put there so that you get a sense of like our working style. And if you're wondering how that has happened and why it was the case, that's because of what I specified at the beginning, that the team that we have developed highly qualified in teaching AP courses. And I'm gonna ask everyone to please mute themselves if you don't mind. Okay. All righty. Okay, so and with that, here today I have our AP biology expert that is going to share some tips and tricks. So she's one of our highly qualified educators and teachers here in the company. She's in fact herself one of those full scorers on AP Bio, and she herself got a full mark, and she's a grad student now at one of the top schools in the US at Johns Hopkins. And those of you who know, Johns Hopkins is the #1 school for bio-related degrees, like med school, dental school, these sort of bio-related. So we are proud enough to have her in our company on board, and she has been helping lots of students, and we are lucky here to have her today here, and she's going to share with us some tips and tricks. So without any further ado, I would like to invite Emily to share with you her secret sauce for getting a full score on AP Bio. So Emily, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Puri. I'm just gonna take the host and then share my screen. Okay, hopefully everybody can see this. I'm just gonna do a little overview about AP Biology as well as some of our just general tips and tricks, and then we'll have Dr. Puri go into more specifics. I kind of just wanted to talk about, our 3-pillar approach and the way that we sort of approach our AP Biology and the best way to kind of situate yourself. It's best, to start early and kind of get a good idea before heading into it. I'm also going to go over sort of the guidelines of the AP Bio exam, because a lot of students kind of go in without knowing what to expect. There is a very strict guideline, so I'll go over that so you have a good idea. And then I'll talk about some of the different types of questions that I usually see on the AP exam to give you a good idea of, what you should be practicing and how you can kind of compartmentalize it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to go into are our 3-pillar approach. So our 3 main things that we want to think about when we're doing AP Biology. And so AP Biology, again, like Dr. Puri said, is a very specific course. It's quite different from our regular course for biology. It is a lot more specific and there's a lot more content, which is what's meant to be hard about the course, right? Students aren't used to navigating so much content, and that's where a lot of the faltering is. So this is gonna be a good approach for students who haven't, engaged in that much content. Our first sort of tip for students and the way you first want to approach it is foundational knowledge. Now, your first 2 units that you're going to learn about, you have chemistry of life, and then you have the parts of the cell. Those are going to be very crucial, and you're establishing the foundation knowledge is going to be super important before you go forward. Because with AP Biology, the big thing that they test you on is your ability to connect all the concepts throughout the entire curriculum, not just per unit. For regular classes, you take your unit test, you kind of forget what's on that unit when you move to the next one. The hard part about AP Bio is having this big continuation of these themes throughout the entire curriculum. So establishing a good foundation is going to be really important for that. So understanding your bonding, your parts of the cell membrane, you're going to have a really hard time going forward if those aren't very clear. So what we do is we spend a lot of time on units 1 and 2, because if you sort of are missing or having gaps in understanding with those first units, it's going to be that much harder to do the next coming units. Students do very well if they have a really good solid foundation in those first units where you're talking about, chemical bonding and how molecules can interact. That's going to help when you start getting into the specific pathways. Okay, so foundation is really important, making sure that you're practicing your basics. And bio, you're going to see, is something that you can't sort of procrastinate or skip forward in. It's meant to be learned in a very specific order. So if you are struggling with foundation and then you decide to just keep kind of pushing forward and going through it, it's all going to sort of pile on and it's going to get that much harder. So making sure you're really comfortable with your first few units is very, very crucial. Okay. The next one is going to be the right type of support. So like Dr. Peary said, the AP Bio course is very specific, and there is not a lot of information out there for how to tackle AP Biology as a specific course. Now, for the right type of support, we're talking about being able to have the right types of questions, the right types of notes, the right types of practice tests, because I do find a lot of students will just look up, biology, practice questions about this subject. They'll find, the general Quizlets, Khan Academy ones, where you're kind of just practicing definitions, and those are fine, but they're not going to prepare you for your AP tests or the AP exam. Maybe it's good for, getting some of the like key terms down, but in terms of the application questions, which is what you're going to see on your tests and on your exams, those won't prepare you for them. So what we try and do here is we provide AP level questions, AP level tests, and that'll make sure that you're preparing with the right amount of content. Students will not prepare with the right type of content that isn't at the caliber that they should be practicing at, and then they go into the AP exam and the questions are nothing like they've seen before, and they haven't practiced with those application ones. So making sure you have the right resources that are tailored specifically for AP Biology is going to be very important, because you don't want to practice with easier material and then head into the exam. It's not going to, fare well. Okay, our next one I've already kind of touched on is going to be practice. Now, this is the most important thing I would say for AP Biology. A lot of students kind of take the approach where they'll sit down and just try and memorize everything. That's not the best way to approach it. Like I said, good understanding of foundational knowledge with practice on top of that is going to be your best bet. The thing with AP Bio is they have very specific types of questions. They'll switch them around, slightly, but the kind of strategic approach to how you manage those questions is going to be very similar. So that's why that practice is really important. So I'll give you an example. Let's say for the AP Bio exam, there's always a really big graphing question. Right? And students who haven't prepared their graphing techniques or how to set up an experiment typically struggle with this. Now, you need to practice your graphing techniques. They might change, what the x-axis and the y-axis and the parameters of the experiment, but in general, the questions follow the same logic. So if you practice enough of those, when you see it on the exam, you'll recognize it and you can, go forward with, a lot of confidence. They do this with most of the FRQ questions. There's kind of a formula that they use. So making sure you're doing the right types of practice, and then also, practicing those really difficult questions is going to be most important. That's how I find the easiest way to kind of also memorize everything, is the ability to, do those questions, realizing, okay, I got that one wrong. Why is that? And then at least for me, that's, the best kind of learning experience, rather than just trying to repeat some memorization to myself. So practice is going to be very, very crucial. And again, like I said, practicing at AP caliber questions is going to be the most important. So those are 3 kind of pillars that you want to keep in mind as you're going forward. So having the right support, making sure you have all that foundational knowledge, and then making sure you're practicing a lot, especially with those FRQ questions. I'll show you what some of the FRQ questions look like, because that's typically where students struggle the most. Dr. Peary gave me a little bit of a background, but this is just a little bit more of a background on me. I run the AP Bio program here. Right now I'm finishing up my master's at Hopkins, and then I did my undergrad in Canada at Queen's University. I mostly focus on biotechnology and like molecular biology. So Unit 6 is my favorite one to teach, but I've also done AP Bio myself. So I kind of have a firsthand experience of the struggle of how hard it is and, the best way to kind of approach it. So I'm going to go through a couple of my personal sort of tips and tricks that you want to keep in mind as you're going in. It's good to go into, studying AP Bio with these in mind, rather than, in the last month trying to cram all of this in. This is going to be sort of your best approach for handling, that much content. Okay, so my first tip for you guys is to review 30 minutes every day. Students tend to procrastinate and then will put off and try and cram for like 5 hours before their test. That's not the best way to memorize things, and that's not the best way for understanding. In terms of how the brain works, you're not going to retain as much information. What I typically tell my students is, if you have a day where you have your biology class, go home, make notes for whatever you learned on that day, make sure you understand it, see if there's any questions that you have, and then come into the next day of class with those questions. If you're not asking questions at every stage or checking in on yourself at every lesson, by the time it's the day before the test and you're trying to cram it all in, you don't understand the first lesson, so you're going to have trouble with the rest of the lessons. It's really important to sort of stay diligent, which is where students struggle, but 30 minutes every day should be enough to make sure that you are digesting a little bit of material at a time. It also helps you retain it. So this is definitely not something to procrastinate or to leave to the last moment. That's just not how you're going to study bio. Learn that the hard way. You're going to want to review a little bit every single day. Okay, the next one is making sure you're keeping concise and organized notes. This is where students absolutely struggle the most because, again, like I said, they're giving you sort of university level content in terms of the bulk of the content, and students do not know how to sort of manage that. I have a lot of students come to me and say, I keep highlighting everything in the notes. I don't know what to memorize, what not to memorize, what's important and what's not. So it's very important that you're going to keep organized and concise notes. If you have 50 pages of notes to look at, it's going to be overwhelming. We can condense those down, and I'll give you a couple tips for these. So some of the first things that you want to do are highlight key terms and definitions. We have that in the bio book that we'll show you, but I like that just to make sure that you can scan through it. And if you can give me the explanation for all of those key terms or new terms for that chapter, you're going to be in a good place. Visuals and diagrams are also going to be absolutely crucial. A lot of things with biology, especially when you start getting to, genetics and the molecular biology, we're talking about molecules that obviously you can't visualize. It's really hard for students just to hear the words. It's best to have lots of diagrams, colorful diagrams, cartoon diagrams, whatever it may be to kind of help you memorize it. That's going to be very, very crucial. So visuals and diagrams, you don't just want handwritten notes. It's not going to be easy to memorize, and it's not going to help with understanding. The next one is going to be to organize all of this in a logical order and making sure not to duplicate concepts. So I find this with a lot of students, and it ties in with not using too many sources for your notes. So students will use class notes, textbook notes, and then they'll use Khan Academy, and then they'll use, another online resource that they might find. And then you're having all of these different sources that you're trying to combine into one. The thing with the way that the course is laid out is it's supposed to be sequential. So you're supposed to learn it in an order that will make sense and the concepts build off of each other. If your notes are scattered with information about, the Krebs cycle over here and then information about something else over here, it's not going to flow logically, and it's going to be a lot harder to remember if it's not in that order. So we have resources to help you put them in the right order, and as well, just make sure maybe if you just want to use your textbook to, look at the highlights of the main topics in the order, just make sure that, you're not duplicating concepts. You have half a note over here and half a note on the other page. It's not going to come together if you have a question about it. Okay, and then the next thing, connecting concepts between units is very big. Like I said, students will learn one unit, forget it, move on to the next unit, and then you get to the AP exam, and then you see a question that's asking you something from unit 3, 4, 6, and 8, right? And you've never done a question that's combined all those units together, or you've never thought about those units together. It's very important to kind of keep those connections going as you go throughout the units and throughout the curriculum, just to make sure that you're keeping those in mind. As I teach them, I also say, okay, doesn't this remind us of unit 2 when we talked about this? This is the foundation for it. Now we're looking at the application. It's going to make it a lot easier so you're not thinking of them as separate units. And then finally, making tables and Venn diagrams to summarize your concepts. Like I said, it's a lot of content. So being able to summarize it in visual diagrams like tables, Venn diagrams are going to be really important. I try and do those, and I try and tell students to also make them themselves because it's a good study tool. So something that they always like to do is, comparing and contrasting certain processes. So always comparing and contrasting mitosis and meiosis, for example. An assignment I'll have is for students to make a tea table for that. It helps them study, it helps them put them together, and it also makes it very organized so that when that question does arise, which I guarantee you it will arise, it's always a question, you will have a pretty concise answer for it. Okay. So those are my notes for keeping organized. You can kind of, obviously we're all going to learn different. Maybe you're more of a visual learner, you like videos. These are just some of the key kind of tips that I would give to you guys. My next one is to start practicing application questions as soon as possible. Now, application questions, which I'll show you guys a couple examples if you haven't seen them yet, are where students lose the most amount of marks, and it's where students struggle the most. We focus a lot on these application questions because that's what's going to be the difference between, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. Students will leave these to the last minute and, just try and cram them all in the month before the exam. That's not the best way to do that because these are strategies. They're not memorizing problems, they're practicing strategies for how to assess these application types of questions. Like I said, graphing questions, how to, read graphs and do those sort of things, those need to be developed over time. And yes, if you start doing them from Unit 1 and Unit 2, they're going to be difficult. You're probably going to really struggle with them and not get them correct. And that's totally okay. At least you're learning and you're trying to getting those processes going. And so you can build, and as you go along, they will get easier. They are not easy at the very beginning. And if you leave it till the month before the exam, you won't, be able to build those skills. So I would say, after you finish Unit 1, do a couple Unit 1 FRQ questions, same thing as you go forward. It's okay if you don't get them right. We're just trying to build the skills. And then obviously we practice a lot of it right before the exam. Okay. And then the last one that I will say that I really want students to focus on are to focus less on memorization and more on big concepts. This is a big kind of shocker for students because they try to memorize everything. And I will say, once you see the format of a past AP exam, they're not going to focus on little teeny tiny details, which is what students spend most of their time trying to memorize. It's more about understanding the concepts and how to apply them. Okay, so what we like to do is we go over these big concepts, making sure you thoroughly understand them. You can apply them to different problems rather than me asking you something very, very specific about a certain type of disease. They typically never ask you questions like that. You would be quite surprised with the general sort of knowledge that you need for these FRQ style questions. Okay, they're all questions that I know my students can answer because they're very straightforward, very general. Don't spend too much time, at least for the exam specifically, on very small, minute details. Okay. So those are my kind of tips and tricks for you guys to keep in mind as you go forward with your AP bio exam. And then the last thing that I'm going to sort of touch on before I pass it back off to Dr. Puri is a bit about the outline of the AP bio exam. Again, just to keep it in mind, I did want to show you guys this visual, which Dr. Puri will also touch on, which is the distribution of students and their grades for AP biology. Now, a big thing you can see here is that, obviously students strive towards a 5. A 5 is very difficult to get. Only 12% of students get a 5 on the AP exam. I will say that big difference is going to be in your practicing of those FRQ questions. So it is a difficult course. It is difficult to get a 5, but if you apply yourself, it is definitely possible. And you follow sort of these tips and tricks that I've given you here to sort of stay on top of your work. Now, in terms of the outline for the AP bio exam, I just want to give you a little bit of outline because for parents and for students that, this is available online, but a lot of students don't, look at it before they go into the exam. It's best to be as prepared as possible, obviously. I'll go through the 3 types of questions that I usually see, but the AP exam is 2 parts. You have a multiple choice section, which is 60 multiple choice questions. You get a total of 90 minutes for this, which is fairly fast. A lot of the multiple choice questions are very long with, words and graphs and everything like that. So timing is going to be very important and is a skill that we practice to make sure you can efficiently answer these. And then the second one, which is where students have the biggest struggle, is the free response questions. So you get 6 of those. They're all long questions, usually around 10 marks each. And then you have 90 minutes for that as well. And then that's the total of the exam. It's about 3 hours, and then you get a little break in the middle. Okay. This is a little bit more of specifics in terms of multiple choice and free response questions. For multiple choice questions, you'll have individual questions as well as question sets. So you'll maybe have a graph and then there'll be 4 questions underneath that are multiple choice questions referencing that one graph. So that's why I always stress graphing, because if you don't have that, then you're missing out on 5 multiple choice questions. For the free response, there's usually 2 really long ones, and then there's 4 kind of shorter ones. They're going to focus on some key concepts. You always have a data analysis question, like I said, so they'll give you a graph and they'll ask you to answer questions on the graph. You'll always have a experiment-based one where they'll give you data from an experiment and they'll ask you questions about it. So those are just strategies that you're going to want to practice prior, obviously, to going into the exam, and those are skills that take a lot of time to build up. Okay, so in terms of the unit breakdown, for all 8 of the units, it's pretty even in terms of how they're going to distribute it. I just like showing this because I know in chemistry, there's one unit that's really heavily favored. In bio, it's pretty evenly split throughout them, and they're all pretty much the same length. And then the last thing that I'm going to go through for you guys are the different types of questions that I typically see. Now, the first one I will mention are conceptual questions. Now, these are going to be your most straightforward questions. You will see, I'd say maybe like 30% of the multiple choice are going to be very straightforward questions where, here's a definition, what does it mean? Or, what organelle does this? They're very straightforward questions, and you usually get about 1 for every FRQ that are kind of, should be a freebie, right? They're not based on the data. They're asking you a general question about the process. So certain questions like these, again, very straightforward. As long as you keep up with your notes, these should be good. They're in no way application or trying to trick you. Very straightforward, and they're also not going to be incredibly specific. These are key terms for every single one of the chapters. The next one are experimental application questions. Now, these students don't practice and they don't realize are on the exam, and then they're worth massive amounts of marks. So they will give you long background details on a type of experiment, and students have never run that experiment. They may not know, the organism that they're using or the technique that they're using. And so students tend to get overwhelmed by these. They're also incredibly long questions in terms of the way that they're going to explain them, because they want to make sure there's no confusion. So you have very long blocks of text with graphs and a bunch of terms that you aren't aware of. Students get very overwhelmed by these. It's really important to have your foundational graph reading knowledge, and then you should be fine with these. I'll show you an example because students will struggle with these. I won't go through the whole thing, but this is an example of an application-based multiple choice question. So the application questions are not just for the long answer. They are also for the multiple choice short answer as well. So here they're giving you a graph, and if students don't know how to read their graphs, this is obviously going to be very difficult. In this one, they're asking you about an organism called chlorella. I've gone through the entire AP curriculum. There is nothing about this type of organism in the curriculum. The point of this question is not about the organism, it's about reading the graph, and what the root of this question is really asking you are what your macromolecules are made of, which is something that you 100% go through in Unit 1 that you should know right, obviously, before you go for your exam. So students will see graphs, they'll see, okay, I don't know what a chlorella is, I don't really know what culture medium is. In the context of this question, it doesn't really matter. The application that you're using is being able to break this question down and kind of disregard all that and focus on what's really being asked here. And the question that's really being asked here is, what are proteins made of? What are lipids made out of? And that's something that you should definitely know going into the exam. So I don't want students to get too overwhelmed by these types of questions. As long as you prep for them, then you should be good. And then finally, you have your long answer written questions, which you see on the second half of the exam. These are multi-part questions. So I have students that think that, okay, the 10-mark question is going to be explain the entire process of photosynthesis. I've never seen a question like that on the AP exams. They don't want you to write paragraphs and paragraphs. No one's going to mark that. A lot of the times they are 1 or 2 part mark questions, and they're looking for a sentence or a keyword or something like that. So that's why I tell students understand the concepts, but you don't need to be able to regurgitate, 2 pages about photosynthesis to me. They're also going to incorporate multiple units, like I said. So part A might be, unit 2, part C might be unit 8, right? And if you haven't kind of thought about those units together in a continuum, it is also going to be difficult. So keeping that in mind. And then for these ones, there's also multiple ways to answer them. And these practice is going to be best. So I'll show you a couple examples of these, and then I'll pass it off to Dr. Peary. But certain things like this. So, students will look at this, get overwhelmed. A graph like this, they might not have seen before. Again, when you break these types of questions down, which I go through with my students, it's actually a very straightforward question. It's asking you about, why plants are certain colors based on the amount of light that they absorb, but they're just putting it in a data analysis question. So this is actually a past AP exam question. So I get these from College Board. You can find all of the past FRQ questions on College Board. It's also really important to look at the marking scheme. I just want to focus in on one of these marking schemes because students get very surprised by how simple these questions are to answer and how difficult they look. So for these ones, like you can see, 1 point per box, they're looking for one sentence or they're looking for one keyword. And, if you spend all your time writing a whole paragraph and all they're looking for is one word, you're wasting time and it's not necessary. So focusing as well on what the marking guide looks like that every single AP marker uses is also going to be very important. And again, you can see here tables. You have to be able to create a graph, calculate rate of reaction, not something explicitly shown to you in the AP curriculum, but a skill that you have to develop throughout. And then again, like I said, always looking at the marking guide is going to be very important. Visual diagrams like this are very common as well. This one, again, students look at it, get overwhelmed. This is really asking you about a key process that we learn about in Unit 6. And then look how simple the answers are that they're looking for. They're looking for one word, which was nucleus, and then another word, which was either RNA processing or removal of introns. So again, you don't need a big paragraph explaining it. You could literally put removal of introns and they will give you the framework. So just keeping those in mind and understanding how they're marking them is going to be super crucial. So that's going to be it for me. I'm going to pass it back off to Dr. Peary to tell you a little bit about the specifics of our program and kind of how we're able to help you navigate everything that I just talked about. So I'll pass that off to Dr. Peary and I'll give you back host.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Emily. I really appreciate sharing with us your absolutely valuable experience that you have gained through all these years. So thank you for that. I personally enjoyed that a lot. So let me see how other things. So write us for the chat. How did you enjoy the first part here? Are we doing good? Maybe some feedbacks in the chat. Yeah, that's not, I see someone by username H say they love you, Emily, but to me, that's not new. Every time I get that feedback. So not only she has an amazing personality, but she's a wonderful teacher and a mentor for lots of students. And yeah, as I said, we are proud to have her on the board in the company. All right, so I'm gonna take on from here and share with you some kind of reiterate on what Emily said and kind of share some extra knowledge and piece of information with you. So I want to iterate two of the things that Emily mentioned. Now we are at a timing that I should emphasize this, and that is starting early. So for AP, as Emily mentioned multiple times, it's a very detailed course. It's not kind of an exam or kind of a course that you can just go for it like for a week or for a month and you can get a good grade out of it. So AP is supposed to be challenging, and there's an explicit reason why is that. The reason that AP courses are challenging is they are university level courses, and they are designed to kind of assess a student to see which students can be on the top of AP exam so that they go to top university. So if I'm sitting in an admission committee of the university that I've done a lot, and I see that, okay, student has AP like 5, then that's a very clear sign of the strengths of this student. But designers of the exam, they make it challenging on purpose to make sure that they're able to distinguish such students. And as Emily mentioned, only 12% of those students have been able to, like, that's kind of average over the years. So only like every student roughly has 10% of chance of getting a full mark on AP. So imagine 10% chance. That's extremely low. And what determines that? So Emily mentioned that a lot of points, what determines which students are getting 5, which ones are not. But one common theme is that those who start early, they have a much better chance of getting a 5 on the exam. So that's something that I wanted to like iterate, and you may want to compare that with the statistics that of our company that I mentioned. So like official records from the College Board site says only 10% get a full mark, but our students, we have been able to make them full mark, most of them. So this is kind of a testimonial on how we are doing. So like here, I'm going to share with you on some of the resources that are available through us in case you're interested in getting extra help from us. So I'm going to share our landing page with you, where again, you can find lots of resources here. So could you just put in the chat if you're able to see my landing page here that I'm sharing with you? Just put in the chat. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, so here, if you go to this section of our website, you'll see the different like some summary of like building a strong foundation, some summary tips that we have provided here. And if you scroll down, you'll see the different resources that are available through our company, whichever you think would suit your interests. So like to start with, I have our study guide. This study guide has been written with Emily and Dr. Saad. She's one of our other AP experts. She's in fact a dentist. And here in this study guide, they have put their expertise that they've gained through years, and they have written this book. It contains all essential topics to score a 5 on the AP Bio exam. It has more than 300 multiple choice questions, some common FRQ questions, one full sample of the exam, some tips and tricks for acing AP Bio. And as I said, it has been written by our experienced educators, Emily and another of our members, Dr. Sad. They have written this book. It was Amazon bestseller, and it has helped many students, and it is available on Amazon. This is the price, as you can see, is $49.99, and you can use this link to purchase it from Amazon to have a look. If you're interested to getting extra support, we have our self-paced program here that it gives you this study guide plus the video explanations for every single concept. So whatever concept for AP Bio that you see on the book, we have short form videos that explains the concept, and after each one, it has short form quizzes after the videos that you can practice the concept. And the self-paced program is $299.99. And our next program comes at self-paced with support. So it is our self-paced program, but on top of that, you get support from Emily and team, one of our experts here. So like it has everything in our self-paced, which is this one, plus unlimited question and answer support for your entire school year. It has 3 full mock exams, and these are the mock exams that are identical to those ones that you're going to see on actual AP. So they're not easy. They're going to assess your capability. And what is nice about this one is that there is no upfront payment that I'm going to explain how does that work. And then comes our AP5 program. And this AP5 program is our top program that contains these features. So it has everything in our self-paced food support. It has weekly live sessions for teaching and education. It has 24/7 private chat support with Emily and her team, unlimited mock exam, and it has guaranteed results. What is guaranteed result is that, so this program, our AP5 program, we guarantee that if the students attend our program and they do their assignments and homeworks, it will give them a guaranteed 5. Otherwise, your money is back. And what is nice about all of these programs is that we are working with reputable financing companies that they provide financing options. So for example, let's say you are interested in self-paced with support, you don't need to pay everything up front. So those financing companies provide you with monthly payment plans with 0 interest. So each one of these programs can be divided into monthly payments, and they don't charge you for 2 weeks. So they can, and they're quite flexible. So each one of these programs, it can cost anywhere from like a couple hundred to a few $100s per month. So if you're interested in any of these programs, you can book a chat with our experts, either myself or other academic consultants in the company. And then during that, we are going to assess the student, and depending on the student's situation, we are going to provide you with a personalized plan for the student that is going to suit the best student's need, so that they will end up getting a 5 on their AP exam. So with that, I would like to share the link for, I think the link is already there. Oh no, that is the link for Amazon. So like one of the links that has been shared, that is a link for our Amazon book, if you're interested in purchasing that. And then if you're interested in any of the other programs, you can book a chat with us, and we are going to see the student with parents, evaluate them, and then based on that, we are going to provide the personalized plan that fits best for the student. So any questions or comments? Please feel free to put them in the chat. Feel free to let us know your questions and comments.
Hi, Dr. Puri.
Hi, Priya.
What is the fee for the AP5 program?
What is the what?
What is the fee for the AP5 program?
What is the fee?
Yeah.
Okay, so the fee, there's a reason we have not put a fee there, and the fee can be different depending on a student's level. So based on the amount of support that the student needs, the fee can be different. And that is why we need to see the student first. So like if you're interested in like exploring it, so we book a meeting for a student with parent. So we assess the student, and based on the amount of support that the student needs, fee can be different. But as I said, regardless of like whatever is the fee, we work with reputable financing companies, and they provide extremely flexible payment plans. So for parents, it is going to be very flexible. So if you're interested, please go ahead and book a chat, and that meeting is absolutely free, no payment or anything for that. The purpose of that meeting is that if you're interested in like getting this program, we just evaluate the student and tell you the amount of support that they need. So we provide a personalized plan.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate your question, Priya. Any other questions? So please feel free either to unmute yourself or just put your questions in the chat. I'll be more than happy. If you have any questions for me or Emily, I would be more than happy to answer those while we are here. So I see one, Naisha Patel. If you're still there, I can see your question in the chat. Yes, there's a way to like get consultation. As I said, if you're interested to getting consultation or have your students evaluated, please go ahead and book a meeting through our AP5 program. The meeting link, you can book it from here. And then on a one-on-one meeting, we are going to talk further about the details. Emily, maybe do you want to take that question? My daughter is entering 8th grade.
Yeah, I'll take that question.
Thank you.
Look.
Sorry, before you continue, let me just complete answering Naisha. So the link, so Masood, can you please provide the link for booking the chat because yeah, this link, that is in our website, and you can book a chat through this link. So Masood, if you're there, if you can hear me, could you please provide the link there? And okay, there's a calendar to book a time. Okay, so Naisha, like the link is there to book a meeting. If you're interested, please go ahead and use that link. And Emily, now please go ahead with your answer for the user's name is iPhone. So my daughter is entering 8th grade, so please go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely think it would be helpful. The way that we kind of structure our program is we teach ahead of what the actual classes are doing. And the point of that is so that they have good background and they have a good idea going into their actual classwork of what they're going to be learning. And I find that's best for students because they'll sit down and they'll hear all this information and they try and write everything down, or they try and memorize everything, like I said. But if they have a good idea of the general concept before going in, they can take the time to listen to their teacher and, look at the specifics that maybe their teachers are looking for. So I definitely think it would be helpful to go in prior, maybe with something a little bit more on the other side in terms of like the study guide or the self-paced, because those you're going to have access to all the material early. You can do practice questions. And so I think those would definitely still be helpful. And she'll definitely have a lot easier time when she gets into AP Bio. And if she is taking other AP courses where, her schedule is really, really busy, I think that would, take a lot of weight off of her shoulders. So yeah, I definitely think this program would be good to do prior to it, during it, but either way, it's designed to be taken kind of before you head into class. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I got a private question. I'm not gonna say the user's name, but the question is like, do we need to pay the whole thing up front? And the answer is no. So like, for example, if you're interested in our self-paced with support program, the price of which is $999.99, you are not going to pay the whole thing like at the beginning. So we work with financing companies and they provide you with financing options. So they break this to you in month, zero interest rate. For example, you are if they provide you, for example, with 10-month financing option, it's going to be like $100 per month. I'm just making up an example here, but suppose they approve you for 10-month financing option for this $1,000 program, it is going to be just $100 per month. So these financing are 0% interest, and it is just to help parents to make it more flexible for them. And obviously, if you're approved for more than 10 months, for example, for a year, or like we have cases the parents get approved for like year, 2 years, even 3 years, like 36 months, like they're going to be less than $100 per month. So it is extremely flexible. So in terms of it doesn't incur any financial pressure to parents. The financing option makes it very flexible. It can even bring it for less than $100 per month. And as I said before, it doesn't charge you for the first 2 weeks. So the payments start after 2 weeks. any other questions. So feel free to either send a private chat to me or put it in the chat. Okay, I'm just reading. So a username PA. So for sample pages, please send a text on WhatsApp to our colleague Masood, and they will help you with that. So PA, okay, I hope that answers your question. And I see another question by John. Okay, since you started this business, what is the percentage of student success to pass the test? Okay, so with this, I love this question actually, John. Thank you for asking that. But so we are not aiming for like passing. We are aiming for getting a full mark. That's what we are aiming for. And as I said, like we have roughly worked with more than 400 students, and our success rate for getting a full mark was more than 90%. So 90% of more than 90% of our students have got a full mark. And I can give you like that link that to our AP5 program, that those students who have attended our classes and they do the assignments, that we guarantee that they will get a 5. Thank you for that question, John. I appreciate it. Any other questions, comments? Please let us know while we're here. As I said, feel free to either unmute yourself, send a private chat to me, or put it in a public chat, whatever you feel comfortable. I just want to make sure that your questions are answered before leaving the meeting. So Emily, could you please answer? So I see a question by Ariane. What is the big difference between AP and pre-AP? So could you please elaborate on that question?
Yeah, so I believe that the pre-AP gets you prepared, obviously, for the AP course. So I don't believe that you do the AP exam afterwards. I mean, you can, but it's not really meant to prep you for that. What it's going to do is it's going to give you good background. And like I mentioned, it's going to give you mostly that really good foundational knowledge. So making sure you understand those sort of core concepts and those first few units. And then when you go to AP, they might get more into specifics, or, you know, they might add more content on top of that. But they're really preparing you for those core concepts. And then it makes your learning of the actual AP curriculum a whole lot easier because you have basically all that foundational knowledge already. And then you'll just have a lot easier time. So it's dependent on if you want to do it. We have students that just go right into the AP Bio program and, you know, do completely fine. But yeah, that's going to give you good foundational knowledge before you head into it. Yeah, so if you're nervous about like the amount of content, that might be good to kind of be able to break it up over a larger amount of time. But the content shouldn't be any different. If anything, it's just a little bit less, it's a little bit more general and less specific. Yeah.
Thank you, Emily, for that. And then I see another question by John. So can we call to some of your clients for their feedback? Unfortunately not. The reason is that we do not have permission to share their contact information. However, that's exactly why we have provided our clients with a testimonial from our past customers. So those testimonials, I'm not sure if you were there at the beginning of the meeting. So there is this that I'm going to share with you. So if you go to our website on our so masteryourcourses.com, we have this section called Success Stories. And if you scroll down, you're able to see, so we have interviewed some of our past students, just some samples there. You'll be able to see like how was their experience with us. Does that answer your question, John? Sure, John, I can send you the link for this. John, are you looking for a link to book a meeting or link for testimonials? And by the way, I can send you more testimonials, and we are going to upload some more testimonials as well in the future days from our like this year's cohort. So I can always send you more testimonials if you're interested, but I get what link you're looking for. Is that link for testimonials or link to book a meeting? Okay. All right, John. So I shared the link for testimonials. So Priya, I see your question that is it going to be a group class for live classes or one-on-one? And the answer is we have both options available, and it depends on your student's need and levels. So we need to assess the student before answering this question, but both options are available. You're welcome. Um, so I have a question. Yes, and the solo costs more. But again, as I said, depending on whether or not it's a group or one-on-one, it depends on the student's needs and levels. All right, we are almost at the 1 hour time frame, so it's time to end this webinar. If you have any further questions, please feel free to email us, or you can book a chat to talk to us in person, and we are going to evaluate your student in a one-on-one setting. And yeah, we have our WhatsApp group, Facebook groups. Feel free to like join them and let us know your questions and comments. we are there for you. With that, I would like to thank you all for attending today's webinar. Thank you again, Emily, for sharing your valuable experience with us. And yeah, have a wonderful rest of your evening.